maybe I'm in the dark here, but do we hear as much about web series as before? I feel like we don't hear as much about web series.
Well, I think we still do. I think there's, I mean, well, the general term of web series is kind of, I guess, too broad, right? Because what is that? Is it just something that's a continuous series you make and post online? It's on YouTube or maybe potentially on a Vimeo or these other platforms, or is it that, or are we talking what YouTube Red's done, where YouTube Red is now obviously producing content and making their own series? So they are actual, are they just actual series? Or are they web series because they're on YouTube but they're for pay? And they're, of course, of bigger budget, and now you're having some name recognition people and big talent, attached to these projects. So is that also a web series? So I guess what are we defining as web series has grown so much from when it was just, independent filmmakers really trying to make a name for themselves, make their own series and get a following. Well, you still see a lot of that, and some of it works really well, and they have a following built up, and obviously you're doing episodic, so you have to come back, the hookability of like, all right, I want to come back and see the next episode, so you have to wait for it and that kind of thing. That's like a normal traditional thing. But a lot of that's changed now. Now you also have streaming with Netflix and everyone, where their shows are saying, okay, well, we're just dumping the show, the whole thing, and binge it and watch all 13 episodes, and it's on, February 5th, and it's on. And instead of the traditional way of, hey, come back for more, come every week, weekly, maybe daily, or whatever that web series might be, or whatever the series is doing. HBO every week, Game of Thrones every week. Netflix and them are just Hulu, they just dump it on there, and you can just binge it and see everything right then and there when it's airing. That's different. That's a different thing. That's changed things as well. But I still think there's a big audience for web series. I think especially when it comes to what is a younger audience looking for, that sort of young adult audience, they like this stuff. But again, it has to match their needs and desires of what they're looking for. What kind of comedy, what kind of writing, what kind of actors and cast, the things they're looking for, that fit them. So you're seeing stuff serving them, and I think some of what YouTube's doing with that is focusing on that younger audience, trying to hook them into watching this content. And those are name talent and people that they like. So it's not something that relates to me. When I see some of these things, and I'm like, I'm not really into those things that they're putting out. I don't like those shows. That's not something that's going to attract me as, coming up on his 40s as a male, not like a 16-year-old teenage girl, like they're looking for this stuff. It's a different audience there, but it's being serviced. So the content's being made for them. And so we're seeing a lot of stuff that's still on web, and for us, submission-wise, we're still seeing a ton of web series submitted, a ton. A lot of web series come in. There's a lot of TV pilots and stuff. They're obviously trying to also go the TV route now, because you can pitch to networks and you can pitch to streaming, streamers and stuff. There's a new need and desire for TV content and it's episodic that way. So you're seeing pilots made for that. But web series is still very healthy as far as a submission for us, is what we see as far as what's coming our way. And I still see there's a ton of them. Now, how good they are, how popular they are, that's something that's still, I guess, in question as far as the popularity, or how many views they're getting and this kind of thing. But we see some that are really awesome that have no views and no real following, but they're fantastic, and some that have a huge following that are kind of silly, honestly, or I don't think very good, or don't make it because they're just not strong enough, the content of the story or just the acting. We just find that some of it's not really for the festival, but they have a big following. So hard to say, but there's still a ton being made. So it's still something I think is very, very prevalent.
Do you think YouTubers are as apt to submit to your festival as just what would be a regular quote unquote filmmaker? I know there's a lot of controversy over, a YouTuber is not a filmmaker, which I don't necessarily agree with, but
yeah.
Do you think some of these more named YouTubers or people with a larger YouTube following are willing to submit to a festival versus someone who's like, no, I'm an auteur, I'm a filmmaker?
Yeah. Well, a little bit of both, because for us, we have the actual categories. So since we are covering web series and TV with categories, we're able to actually accept those submissions and see them come our way. But that said, still a lot of, if you say YouTubers, are people that are maybe extremely famous or built their brand up strictly on the YouTube, sort of with their subscription channels or with their own platform and that kind of thing on YouTube, or, we don't see as many of those, whether it's, I'm trying to find the right, especially going back to the young audience, like talking teenagers, there's a certain influencers, right? That's the word, the influencers. Some of these influencers, we're not seeing as many of them submit, quite honestly. So I guess there is a disconnect to some way. There's some of them do. We have had some, and we've screened some. We've had some at our festival before. So there are some, but as a whole, it's not a heavy majority. Not like all of them are coming our way or submitting to festivals or submitting to our festival. So there is a sort of, that's not really the right word, disconnect, but there is definitely you see there's a sort of difference as far as who's submitting to festivals and what their goals are. I suppose they feel if you are, I guess, a quote unquote influencer, maybe that means you have millions of followers or something, and you're making, quick hitting web series content or like stuff that's kind of good for Snapchat and that kind of stuff. Like, is that something that's going to fit for the festival? They probably look at it like probably not, and maybe they're even probably right, but they also have a huge following and they become famous and they're all right, So where does that lie for the festivals? I don't know. For us, it's definitely, there is I guess a disconnect there. It's not something that we're seeing a ton of. Maybe that's something to explore as far as a category for them or an area of another festival, or maybe there's a festival to be had just covering the sort of that area, like a festival just for, that sort of ilk of a YouTuber or a filmmaker that's got a big following that way. I don't know. We don't personally put any judgment. For us, I don't feel like we care if you're an influencer or not, big following, no following. We're trying to just strictly look at, is this good or not? Is this fit the mold that we're looking for the web series category? Is this good for said categories? And that's it. That's the goal. And if it is, then great. And if it is not, which some of it isn't, because I've seen some of this stuff. And some of the stuff is like, I don't know. It's just not for us. It's not for me. It wouldn't fit an exhibition screening of the festival. It just doesn't, whether it's just a few seconds or it's 10, 20 second little sort of cutaway clips and it's like a bunch of episodes where it's like silly punchline jokes and stuff doesn't really have any production value at all. And, but people love them and they have this huge following. Not to name names, so I won't specify anyone, but it doesn't maybe fit. So, yeah.